Welcome to the Alabama Bass Trail Podcast, brought to you by Phoenix Boats. Now, here are your hosts, Alabama Bass Trail Program Director, Kay Donaldson.
Welcome into the Alabama Bass Trail Podcast presented by Phoenix Boats. I'm Kay Donaldson, the director of the Alabama Bass Trail and the host for this week's podcast. I want to start off by asking once again for you to remember a dear friend of ours, certainly mine and the Alabama Bass Trail, Mr. Big Daddy Lawler. And I say that he is friends to most everyone in the outdoors. He is truly a national treasure. And he is from Camden, Alabama. Just recently, when I was there in June, Big Daddy and I had some time to kind of drive around the county, and we went up to the dam. We went to the small museum there. Just spent a good deal of time, which I always try to do when I'm in Camden. And we just got to spend a good bit of time together and to understand how much he loves his area and understands the value of tourism and the value of hunting and fishing to that area is just amazing. And I wish that every community had 10 Big Daddy Lawlers. He is just a national treasure. And for a tourism organization and for someone who just loves their community, he mentioned to me in his almost 74 years that he had only left Camden twice in his life for more than 24 hours. That was when he was in the fourth grade. He went on a field trip that was overnight. And then later on in his life, he went on a cruise with some other gentlemen and was gone for 3 or 4 days. So only twice in his life he left Camden for over 24 hours. And that tells you right there, he loves where he's from and he loves home. And we love him. So if you would just take a moment to say a prayer for him. His health is not great. I got some text messages from his brother on Sunday, and he desperately, desperately needs our prayers. So if you would, please, as you're listening to this podcast, if you can't stop what you're doing right now, please remember to send up a prayer for Big Daddy Lawler. And if you can send up many prayers, I know they would be appreciated. We certainly are doing that here from the Alabama Bass Trail. Our staff and our fans love Big Daddy, and we're wishing him all the best. So I can't start any other way. And I do also want to thank everyone in our listening audience and on our Alabama Bass Trail team who contributed to Taylor's Heart Walk this past weekend. We were able to give a donation to over $700 to the Mended Hearts Association that operates within Huntsville Hospital, providing the much needed heart pillows for patients recovering from heart surgery. As most of you know, my son underwent open heart surgery. It was called a cabbage procedure, coronary artery bypass graft on December the 4th, where he had one bypass done, able to stay off pump and is recovering well. And we were able to do a walk in his honor yesterday. And really, Taylor's comments were to walk for everyone that you know that might have heart disease or the people that have it and don't know it yet, because that was him. Basically showed no signs other than a little bit of fatigue and some indigestion. But then we found out that he had possibly had 2 heart attacks within that week. So thankful for the doctors there at Huntsville Hospital, all the staff that cared for him, and all the people that were involved in his care. So thank you to everyone who contributed. You can still do so. If you'd like to, you can go directly to Mended Hearts, or you can reach out to me and I'll be glad to send you a link that you can donate to them. We didn't know how important that little red pillow was until we were sent home with it and watched Taylor recover over the last 60 days. It certainly means a whole lot. So thank you to everyone who donated. We appreciate that from our friends and family. Thank you so much. But wow, what a doozy the first stop of the Alabama Bass Trail was, down on Lake Jordan, kicking off the South Division. Guys, come on. 225 teams signed up back in August, and I figured it up. So if they signed up on the 15th of August, they waited 178 days for this event. And you could tell Friday night at the meeting, the anticipation was high. And even before that, I got on site on Wednesday evening. It was a little bit later than I normally like to get on site, but got on site on Wednesday evening. Didn't do a whole lot other than ride the boat ramps and check on a couple of things. But then Thursday morning, got up, got busy, went to the boat ramps, went to a couple meetings, stopped by the Civic Center, did the things I needed to do on Thursday prior to getting ready for an event. But the town was buzzing. A lot of people talking about boats that were in the area on Saturday before. I know there was a high school fishing tournament there, but a ton of Alabama Bass Trail people were telling me that they fished on Saturday and Sunday. leading up to our event. We do a cool thing at the beginning of each tournament. When we have an in-person meeting, we ask how many people live 50 miles away, 100 miles away, even 200 miles away. And the number of the hands that went up and stayed up were overwhelming. And then also the number of people who practiced 2 days or more. I would say well over 60% of the field practiced multiple days for that. So it was a great event. I can't even say enough about the tournament itself. I'm going to start off with saying 2135 to take the win on Lake Jordan. They did not weigh a big fish because John Pollard set the bar pretty high on that with a 621 big fish. So not a ton of people weighed for big fish, but I do want to give you a little bit of the statistics here in just a minute. It took 1435 to take 40th place. That was a little shy of the record. I think 1555 was what it was to take the 40th place check several years ago. I want to say that was like in 17 or 18. But just an overwhelmingly good tournament. Robbie, Pelt, and Erick Sommers with an O. Let's get that correct. Erick Sommers with an O took the win, 2135. None of us picked them, and I'm really not sure why. To be honest with you, I'm not sure why Luke or I didn't have them on our list. I understand Luke not having them on the list, but it was a big faux pas in my brain not to have them on my list. But I do want to talk about Lake Jordan because over and over and over and over and over, and even as early as this morning, I'm reading posts about why there shouldn't be big tournaments on Lake Jordan, why Alabama has too much fishing pressure, all the things. And I've said this before. I don't disagree that there's a ton of fishing pressure in the state of Alabama. I don't disagree with that at all. But you have to understand where we're coming from is I can't go out and say nobody else can have tournaments in the state of Alabama. That's not a fair assessment. I can't, I don't have any job regulating tournaments. It's not my job to regulate tournaments. It comes very hard for me to say no one else should be able to have tournaments. So I try to stay very neutral in this discussion. But what I try to do is give you the data, the real, live, truthful data. I don't just come out here and throw darts and say this is apparent on every lake. Because every lake in the state of Alabama is different. They all have different water flow controls. They have different water level controls. They have different ecosystems underneath that water. There are just a lot of things that go into preserving and managing a fishery. And I think if you try to paint it with a broad stroke, you've done yourself and everyone around you a misservice. So I want to talk a little bit about, we were there in 2023 or 2020 in February, on February 29th was a leap year. And then we were back again in 2024 in February. And I want to do some comparisons. And I first want to talk about 2020. It was still a good tournament. 2020, we had 225 teams that actually put in and fished that morning. 203 teams weighed in one bass or more. 66 teams weighed a limit. That's 5 fish. 66 teams weighed a 5 fish limit. Again, this is for 2020. 656 bass caught for 1,586 pounds. We had 4 fish over 5 pounds. The big fish was a 548. This number is what I want you to pay close attention to. 70 largemouth bass weighed in, 586 spotted bass weighed in. That was for 2020. And I am going to just tell you, I may have to pause for a drink of water. Just all weekend, I've talked all weekend. I talked all day Friday, all day Saturday, and we had the Heart Walk for Taylor on Sunday, so I talked a lot then too. So I'm just going to pause a minute and have a little sip of water. And then I'm going to give you 2024 numbers. Listen to this. 220 teams fished on Saturday. We had 5 teams not able to make it. 208 teams weighed in 1 fish or more. It's only 5 teams more than 2020. 145 teams weighed limits. 145 teams compared to 66 teams. I'll let you do the math. 876 bass were weighed in. 2,206 pounds of bass weighed in. 12 bass over 5 pounds, that's 3 times more than in 2020, and a 621 big fish. Here's the numbers, guys. 281 largemouth weighed in and 595 spots. That is 4 times the amount of largemouth that was weighed in 2020. 3 times as many 5-pounders weighed in, same time of the year. I mean, we varied 19 days. So I think for overall, in my non-expert opinion, and I say that 100%, my non-expert opinion, Lake Jordan is doing quite well right now. We came in after about 170, 150, 170 boat tournament on the previous Saturday. We had extremely great conditions, warming weather all week, had some rain on Friday and Saturday. But overall, the question has been since COVID, the amount of pressure that the lakes have seen, the growth in tournaments and all of that. But the numbers don't lie. And I'm going to say this, and I'll probably get a bunch of comments online, and that's fine. I think the Alabama Bass Trail does a better job than any other trail in recording their data. We have trained our people at the bump sinks. We have trained everyone in our staff. Conservation, we have 2 bass that were caught that did not get released. So out of the 876, 874 were released back to the reservoir. But we've trained our staff in how to record this data. We have written our software to record this data. It is very important to us that we provide the state of Alabama with the very best data that we can, and that is why we have done it this way. So I wanted to make that very clear because, again, as early as this morning, I'm reading Facebook posts and text messages that I'm getting about the number of tournaments that take place on such a small body of water. And I just wanted to cover that, lakes go through lots of different things. Flooding takes a part in this, water generation. The fact that we're there in the feeding time. I mean, these fish are ready to go to bed. They're full of eggs. They're the fattest they can be. And that's what Trip Weldon said last week on the podcast. They are as fat as they can be. They're looking for that weather to get on up there, get that water temperature in that mid to high 50s so that they can get ready to do their thing. But I just want to understand or express to everyone out there that you cannot paint every lake in the state of Alabama with a broad stroke. You cannot say the same thing works at Guntersville that works at Lake Jordan or even at Lake Martin. It is totally different. And so please understand that. And when you're hearing people discuss this, take into consideration their maybe outside agenda when they're doing this, but also be wary of people who aren't really paying attention to the data. Because there is some data out here that supports the fact that the state of Alabama fisheries are doing well. So I just want to, I'm not saying every fishery is fishing at what it was in 1970, but there's a lot of good, positive things that we can remark about our fisheries. So I just wanted to kind of go out there and say that. A couple of things I also want to say is thank you to the city of Wetumpka for letting us use that fantastic facility there, the Civic Center, to do our meeting. It was fantastic. It always is. The hospitality there is fantastic. Got to visit several restaurants. Everyone was so excited we were in town. I also want to give a shout out to Lisa Van Wagner from the Elmore County Economic Development. She was on hand on Friday night. She was there Saturday, very interested in what we're doing. And we look forward to getting her some economic data back to her. But overall, everyone I talked to had a good tournament. The numbers of the fish that they caught were not necessarily there. You heard very few people say they caught 30, 40 fish, but the ones they caught were very healthy and the right size. So that was exciting. I'm tickled to death to have that first tournament under our belt. That's the last in-person meeting we will have on the South. Everything else will go virtual. Just an awesome event to start off the season there at the Alabama Bass Trail. And we're fortunate we're going to get to catch up with the winners of that tournament here in just a little bit on the Alabama Bass Trail podcast. So you stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back here on the Alabama Bass Trail podcast presented by Phoenix Boats. We'll be right back.
Things you let me see.
Welcome back to the Alabama Bass Trail Podcast presented by Phoenix Boats. And as I promised, I have your winners, Robbie Pelt and Erick Sommers. Sommers with an O, by the way. If you're writing a story, include the Sommers with an O. Welcome in, guys. How are y'all feeling this morning?
Doing good.
Good. I'm going to start out by saying I had an opportunity to talk to Robbie on Friday at Wetumpka Marine. We did a little meet and greet there. And Robbie, you mentioned that you thought it was going to take a big weight to win on Saturday. Was 2135 what you thought it would take, or did you think it would take more?
I honestly thought it would take a little more. I did.
Okay.
I personally did. After talking with Erick and what I found is free fishing and then what he found in free fishing. Yeah. So needless to say, we free fished one day and we were done.
Yeah.
And we both gave each other a thumbs up, like, hey, if this don't work, this will work. So we were good.
Okay.
But I figured the largemouth would play a big role, and somebody would go in there and get a couple 6-7 pound largemouth and would show up with a big old bag. That happens a lot of times this year on that lake. Sometimes largemouth win these tournaments, and you just never know on that lake.
Right. Well, I see where Erick lost the call, so I'm going to pause you just a minute. We're going to call him back and get him back on the phone. So hold on just a second. All right, we're back. We've got Erick back with us, Erick and Robbie. I talked to Robbie on Friday about what he thought it was going to take, and he mentioned he thought it was going to take a big bag. Erick, what did you think 2135 would take the win on Saturday?
I felt comfortable with 2135. I didn't know if it would take the win. Lake Jordan has got some big fish in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to catch 5 big fish with 225 boats, but it does have some big ones, especially this time of year.
I mean, you've won this event before. A few years ago, you won this event. Was it during this time of the year? It's hard for me to remember.
It was actually like February the 13th or 14th.
Okay.
And we had 24.95 then, 25 pounds. So we was hopeful with 21.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And that's the year that it did take like 15 and a half to get a check in 40th place. One of the things, and I'll bring this up to y'all, covered it in the first segment, but you guys, of course, weren't with me. 2020 was the last time we were here. And, there was a concern because we only had 70 largemouth weighed in. We had 586 spots. Last Saturday, we weighed in 281 largemouth and 595 spots. What is your opinion of where Lake Jordan is right now and it's considered compared to its heyday?
Lake Jordan is fishing really, really well right now. You can catch a lot of numbers. The key is catching the better 3.5 plus class of fish, in my opinion.
Right. Certainly in tournament fishing, I know that's important, but if a guy wants to just go out and go fishing, where would you rank it? Just let's say that the 5 Alabama Bass Trail South Lakes. I mean, we know you're going to catch numbers if you go to Lake Martin. You're not going to catch a ton of 3 and 4s, but you're going to catch a ton of fish. Logan Martin, big on limits. We always catch a lot of limits there. You can catch the 3s and 4s there, but I think, comparatively, Lake Eufaula, I think that's a really good lake. But, in the 5 in the South, what do you think as far as like its health wise, as it stacks up to those other 4 lakes?
I actually probably think it's healthier, but you got to also consider it's a lot smaller than any of the rest of them.
Right. But it still has a ton of pressure. It still gets a ton of pressure, though.
It does. Yeah.
Robbie,
they can't even get off the bank anymore.
Do what, Robbie?
They can't get off the bank anymore. All the scopers now.
Yeah.
It's definitely a game changer. But no, that lake is always going to produce, and it has. It's been that way for 20 years now.
Well, we'll talk a
Yeah.
little bit about the scope in here in a little bit when we talk about how you guys pulled off the win. I noticed that you were boat 200. And in a lot of tournaments, the first tournament of the year, you want that later fishing time. But on a lake as small as Lake Jordan, sometimes that's a double-edged sword. You may be fishing used water by the time you got blasted off. Were you able to get to your first spot?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Nope.
No.
There was two boats
Actually,
on it.
There was two boats sitting on it when we went by. I mean, like, and of course I'm sure they agreed on it, but they wasn't, 30, 40 foot apart. And I'm like,
Yeah.
good night. Here we go again,
Here we go again. Yeah. And that's the thing with the 225 oak field on there. I mean, we talked about that on the podcast the week before. You're pretty much going to have used water by the time you get there, unless you're in those first two flights. Was it your first spot that produced, or were you ever able to get on that spot at all?
We got on it later in the day and didn't get a bite. And a good friend of mine was actually on it when
Okay.
we come by.
Okay.
Anthony Goggins, I think he ended up with a decent bag also.
Right. Right.
So kudos to him. I mean, it's not a lot of the locals do know the hole, and
Okay.
it's a really good spot this time of year. Was
Okay.
we upset a little bit, but you always got to have a backup plan, and we
Right.
went to Plan B.
Well, I mean, you didn't say Plan D, so that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know.
so did you go to your second spot?
Yes, we went to our second spot.
Okay. Did you stay there most of the day? How many spots do you think you hit all day?
It wasn't really a spot. It was more or less an area.
Okay.
We stayed within. We was upriver, and we stayed within a mile of the dam all day. We fished at the dam. I think we weighed in. I know one fish that come from the dam itself, maybe two, but we didn't catch many up there. The dam actually surprised me this year. They wasn't pulling as much water as you really need. They didn't have but one wheel on. You really need two or three.
Right.
So it actually surprised me. I mean, it was a grind. Robbie will tell you, I mean, I know the weights look good, but we did not have a slugfest and catch a bunch of fish at all. A camera boat would have been bored with us.
Okay. Okay. We saw guys getting a flurry. We saw Noah and Cole Godwin that caught 5, just boom, 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 probably within 30 minutes. On live, we saw them, but it wasn't the limit they wanted. They were at that 13, 14 pound limit, and they knew they needed somewhere between 18 and 21 to really scare the leaderboard. So they were very honest about that. That wasn't the limit that they wanted, but we also saw them get slapped a couple times, like the fish would slap at it and then spit it. So they weren't aggressive like they were. Say, everybody told me on Friday that they were just taking it. They were just taking the baits on Friday. The bite was a little off on Saturday, that they weren't just choking the baits. They were really just kind of spitting at it, and they lost several. We saw them several misses on camera. We saw a couple other teams do the same thing during live. So the bite was a little bit different. So you were within, you say, a mile of the dam. That's where you fished all day.
We stayed, I would say, within a mile of the dam. Yes, ma'am, all day long.
Okay. What time did you have your first limit?
Woo. Maybe, what time was it, Robbie? 9 o'clock?
I think more like 10.
Maybe 10. It was
that overcast made the day go by fast, but yeah, it was probably 10 o'clock. It was one an hour.
Okay.
We catch one fish an hour. But they were choking it when they would eat it.
Okay.
And we had a flawless day, as in, putting them in the boat, which is hard to do. But I don't think we lost a fish all day.
No.
So they were eating it. Like,
how many fish do you think you caught all day?
9.
Yeah, 9, 12, something like that.
I mean, like I said, it wasn't many.
That's what we heard throughout the week. We didn't hear a lot of guys catching the big numbers. We see a lot of guys that caught quality fish, but just not your 20, 30 fish a day. So That was pretty much in what we saw. What, if you don't mind, what were some of the key baits that you used? And were you scoping? Were you using live scope or active target or whatever?
Go ahead.
Why did I know?
Oh.
Why did I know that y'all were not going to want to answer that question? I knew that. I
We
knew.
were coping a little bit.
We
did
did
scope.
use it some. Yeah.
Okay.
Now all of our fish did not come from scoping, of course. I mean, I told you we caught, one or two at the dam, and there's no way to scope in the current.
Right.
But there was an area that we caught some scoping fish, and it was, I don't know if it was because of the weather change. All week it was sunny and bluebird skies, and it seemed to be a lot better on the scoping. And then come tournament day, of course, it's drizzling rain and overcast and all of that. So it made it a lot tougher. I think one of our keys to the win Saturday was patience. And Robbie and I talked about that throughout the day. When it was like 9:30, 10 o'clock, we didn't have 3 fish. Now, one of those fish was a 5-pounder. So that was a confidence booster to stay put and keep, going back and forth and doing what we're doing. But that's like I told him at one point. I said, when we was fishing 10 years ago, we'd have done burnt half a tank of gas trying to catch 2 more on this lake.
Right.
Said, You're right.
Right.
You're right.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but yes, we did. I think maybe I know one of the fish come from scoping. I'd be telling a fib if I said more than one, but we did do some scoping at a couple of times during the day.
Okay. How deep were you fishing?
Most of the time we're setting in 30 to 40 foot, throwing into 15 to 20.
Okay.
The better fish did seem to still be out deeper. I will say that.
Okay.
Of course, the scoping fish are 6, 8, 10 foot, but
Right.
when the fish that we caught like on a jig, those fish was 18 to 20 foot.
What were you targeting? I mean, were you targeting just suspended fish, or what? Was there anything in the contours that led you to go to those spots?
Yeah, I mean, you're still fishing current, but what you got to find is the strongest current possible.
Okay.
And you read your contour lines and you mapping and you graph and this, a lot of people, Robbie and I together has got over 40 years of experience on that lake.
Right.
I mean, that helps.
Right.
We know a lot of little nicks and crannies where the water back swirls and underneath 18 to 20 foot deep that you just don't see with the naked eye.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that does help a lot. And some of them we caught fish on, some of them we didn't get a bite on. It was actually surprised.
Wow. So, time on the water, we talk about that a lot. We see Noah and Cole Godwin always, posting that they've been at this tournament or that tournament. It really is in this particular case. Yes, you had, the live scope opportunity, or you had a forward-facing sonar on the boat, but you think that your win this time is just really based on the information that you've garnered over the 40 years that you guys, the experience that you have on that lake.
Oh yeah,
100%.
Okay. Any baits? I know I heard you say a jig. I mean, can you talk a little bit more about that? We saw a lot of crankbaits being thrown, even some I think we've seen some DT-16s being thrown. Is there any particular baits that you found you were more successful on?
Tell them what you caught them on, Robbie.
go ahead.
I caught my part in the dip net.
In the dip net?
Being honest.
Okay, so you were net man.
As crazy as it sounds, I mean, literally, we caught them on everything: a jig, jerk bait, swim bait, crankbait. It was junk fishing at its finest. It really was. There was no rhyme or reason for anything this weekend.
Okay.
We just knew where we needed to be, and we had a long time to fish, and we went fishing. I mean, and that's what we did. So.
Well, a lot of times, especially these springtime tournaments, that's what you have to do. You can't be set on a certain bait and a certain pattern, because if you do, a lot of times you find yourself just outside the cut line, if not way down the field. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
All
there
right.
wasn't one thing that we said that was going to be what we fished. I mean, it was, he would be fishing one thing, I'd be fishing something totally different the whole time. So,
Well, I noticed that Robbie, I guess that was your daughter that had your softball. You had your softball team there on Saturday.
yeah, we had planned our first tournament for Saturday, or our first practice for Saturday. And so one of our other coaches, thank God for him, he kind of manned practice, but my wife had sent me a text asking me how we were doing. So we had a decent bag about 1 o'clock, and they were all going to have a spend the night party at the lake house. So they were all up there anyway. So it was fun, and that part made me happier to let them experience too and get up on stage, and they were happy and all giggly. So that was fun to let them experience that also. It was fun for me too. Me and Erick have been due. We keep talking about it. We've said this 100 times to each other. We're due.
Yeah.
It's coming. And I think I told you the other day with some Marine that it just hadn't worked out. We've been on fish every tournament, every year. We've been on them. It's either cold front, flood, 20 boats on your spot, boat number. Something just hasn't worked out. But hopefully it'll come together, and we'll be able to show them what the old guys can do.
Well, I want to talk about two things that you just said. Trip Weldon sent me a text this morning. He said, I was listening to you and Luke on the podcast, and I meant to send you a message and say, Robbie Pelt, Erick Sommers are my sleeper team. Like, that's the team that I think could be the dark horse that could come in and win this event. He said he was tickled to death with the tournament. He lives there at Lake Jordan, loves that area, and was so excited to see the weights and the strong weights that came in on Saturday. But he said they would be my sleeper team if I had to pick one. He texted me that this morning. So anytime you got Trip Weldon picking you must have a really good success story there. But I want to talk about what you just mentioned. It was your softball team's first practice. That's your daughter's team, and what we miss. I mean, I know that going through this process, the things that I've missed, and it's hard. It's hard to choose to go do something that you love over being there with your kids at their things and all that. But the fact that you did get to share that with them, I thought that was really cool. The dads that we see, and even the mamas that we see that bring their kids up on stage, from my standpoint, and having raised, my kids and been so involved with the things that they do, I just love that. I think that is so good. I hate that we can't schedule around everything, because I know that we had people doing Mardi Gras in Mobile, and we had people missing baseball practices with their sons and drafts with their sons and softball practices. So it's tough. It's tough to make those decisions. And I'm glad that your wife was able to bring them there, and they got to come up on stage with you. I've certainly tickled to death over that.
Yeah, that little one right there has shut it down. I went from fishing, I don't know, 150, 200 times a year to 5 tournaments with Alabama Bass Trail.
Yeah.
So,
They
I
do.
mean,
That's pretty much all Robbie gets to fish is Alabama Bass Trail.
Yeah.
But I got to focus on really what's really important in life, and that little girl right there is very important to me. And I think a lot of people lose focus on that, but these are crucial years, and so I want to be able to spend them with her for sure. Me and Erick talk about it all the time. I'm always gonna be able to go fishing, good Lord willing. So for sure, I don't want to miss them moments, and then I'm gonna miss a few this year, but that's fine. They can give me 5 tournaments.
Yeah.
And kind of let me have a little fun at least. So, and when I watch them little girls win, I'm telling you that's happier than that tournament win we had the other day. I'm proud for them. They all work hard. We work them hard, man. But that's been the joy of my life right there.
Well, we've seen David Pear go through that with his daughter. And I know Dallas Weldon stepped away this year from the regular Alabama Bass Trail because his daughter's a senior and he wanted to be there for those games. And we've seen other people do very similar things. And I think that is certainly warranted. And the great thing about it is, hopefully, I mean, Lord's willing, the Alabama Bass Trail is here for a long time, and you'll have plenty of time to fish. But I loved that. I love the fact that people feel comfortable enough to bring their kids to our events. They know that we're a family event, and we want those kids, and we want to grow that next crop of anglers. And whether or not she goes and ever gets the fishing bug or whatever, at least she got to experience that with you that day. So, one other question, and I'm gonna let y'all go. I know you're busy on a Monday morning. You probably took a couple of days off last week to go fishing, so I'm gonna ask you one more question, then I'll let you guys go. You've secured your entry into the Lake Championship in October, so that is taken care of. You've already qualified for that. What's next? I mean, I know that there's a few more tournaments on there that you got to be looking forward to. Is it Angler of the Year? Is it being inside that top 9 to go to the next Bass Team Championship? What's the goal now, since you've already got your win?
Both.
Goals always win.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the goal. I mean, when we show up, we're not showing up. Normally, me and him swing.
Yep.
Win, lose, or draw, we're swinging. So I mean, the goal's to win.
So it doesn't change.
Eric-
The goal
Erick
doesn't
has
change.
a thing Eric has a thing that cracks me up. He said, "We can't eat points."
I've never heard that, but I like it.
I'm a swinger. I try to win every tournament I fish. I am, and it costs me a lot. I mean, my percentages are real low on wins.
Yeah.
But when I do win, it's a good win.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like Saturday. We know between he and I, there was probably by the time we left one end of Lake Jordan and run to the other, there was at least 250 places we could have stopped and probably caught a limit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not bragging. I'm just saying because we fished it for so long, but we
Right.
knew where we needed to go and the areas we needed to be in to have a chance to win. And that's like I mentioned before, and Robbie and I talked about it Saturday laughingly and cutting up. I said, 10 years ago, we'd have burnt half a tank of gas. We would have.
Right.
I turned 50 this year. Robbie's a little younger than I am. We've settled down a lot in our fishing, and it's more of a confidence thing now than run and gun.
Right. Right. Well, I can get that. I'm up there with you in the 50s. I'm not quite just 50. I'm a little older than you, but I've calmed down a little bit myself. I think my body just said you must calm down just a little bit. So, well, guys, I mean, what a start to the season. I mean, Lake Jordan showed out. You guys ended up on top 21-35 to take the win. All spotted bass, am I correct?
Yep, all spotted bass.
All spotted bass. And I think that second place team had spotted bass as well. So what a great way to start the year. You've got about 3 weeks before we get to Lake Martin to kind of regroup and get ready. That'll be a totally different tournament than Lake Jordan, or as Robbie Floyd used to say, it is exactly the same but different there at Lake Martin. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to watch y'all the rest of the season. Good luck and congratulations once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, y'all have a great week.
See ya.
All right, guys, there you go. That's the winners of Lake Jordan. Robbie Pelt, Erick Sommers with an O. Let's just be clear. Erick Sommers with an O. Take the win, 21-35. What an impressive victory. All spotted bass on the Coosa River. So we'll be back in just a minute. We're going to get Luke Duncan, the voice of the Alabama Bass Trail, to join us. We're going to talk a little bit about this past week's tournament, get his feelings on a couple of things that I picked out. And then also let's talk about Pickwick Lake getting up here on the Tennessee River if the rain will ever stop. So we're looking forward to it. We'll get Luke on here in just a minute, but you've been listening to the Alabama Bass Trail Podcast presented by Phoenix Boats. We'll be back in just a minute.
Hear that sizzling? That's bologna whispering, I'm back. The Big Bologna Breakfast Sandwich is back at Jack's. 2 thick-cut slices of fried bologna, eggs, and cheese on Texas toast for $3.99. Jack's, all about the South.
Welcome back to the Alabama Bass Trail Podcast presented by Phoenix Boats. There he is, the voice of the Alabama Bass Trail, Mr. Luke Duncan. Welcome in, sir.
I am glad to be back. I feel like you and I talk a lot, Kay. We talk so much because we got so much bass fishing going on in the state of Alabama, and some good bass fishing is what we saw this past weekend.
Dude, I mean, I said it was a doozy this weekend because everybody I talked to from Wednesday leading up to the tournament said they weren't getting the 20 and 30 bites a day, but the bites they were getting were quality. And we certainly saw that when the fish came across the scales this weekend.
Listen, I smelled like I had caught 3,000 bass when I got home just from being around it. Marissa said, "What did you fish today or did you work for the ABT today?" And I was like, "I feel like I fished because all those, man, those bags." And I got in on some of the action. I was not going to let those five fish, those spotted bass bags not get shown off like they needed to be. I was in the mix.
Oh, I loved it. And, that's the important thing. I mean, there were some fat spotted bass. I mean, 5 fish limit of spotted bass won this event. I don't think anyone would have thought that. I think they really would have thought that, the big fish 621, that largemouth would have played for the winning bag. But, I talked to you off camera about a couple things. I always like to, I'm not trying to debunk the idea that Alabama has too many tournaments. I'm not trying to debunk the fact we have tons and tons of pressure on our lakes. We do, probably more than any other southern state, I would guess, because we have those big names like Gunnersville and all that. But looking at a very small body of water, 6,600 acres there at Lake Jordan, we had a tournament on February 29th, 2020. We came back February 2024. Some very staggering numbers, and I'm going to repeat these numbers. 66 teams weighed in limits in 2020, opposed to in 2024, 145 teams weighed limits. That's shocking to me that we've more than doubled, 3 times as many teams.
Insane. Of course, you gotta look at I think fishermen are getting better, right? And I know we're gonna talk some about that, but 145 limits. I said to John Simpson, I pulled the mic aside and I said, dude, we were in the first 30 or 40 boats and it was like 12 pounds, 13 pounds, 14 pounds, 13 pounds, and we had a couple big bags early, and I'm like, buddy, get ready. Like they got them today. And we saw a little bit of that on the live, but
Yeah.
I do think we are seeing fishermen get increasingly better as well at all levels. So I think that adds in, but it's just a testament to me, how great the ABT anglers are. And I said this on stage, like you think your lake is fishing a certain way and you turn that 225 loose, you find out what actually lives there. I feel like, and
Right.
I'm on both ends of that. I've been in the term, oh, well, they won't catch them that good today. Well, they typically catch them better. Think the check weight's always higher than what you think it's going to be going in typically, but it's just a testament to that fishery. That Coosa River kicks them out, and Jordan is the like one of the crown jewels of the Coosa, and just continues to impress. And I was blown away, man.
Well, a couple of numbers that really stuck out to me was the number of limits, but then also what we hear over and over and over from people who fish the Coosa River on a regular basis is the amount of largemouth. They feel like the largemouth population has just been desolate. They haven't been able to catch those largemouth. We saw that in the championship back in October in 2022. But when you look at the best time of the year to fish Lake Jordan, I really think you're looking at that February March timeframe. And this year we saw 281, I believe. Let me get my numbers back here. Oh, okay. 281 largemouth. Back in 2020, we only had 70 come across the stage. So that is a very encouraging number for those guys down on the Coosa River that were worried about the largemouth population.
Hey, they were just hiding out a little bit in the fall. They get funky sometimes, but they showed up in a big way. The Mountain Dew Big Bass with a 621, but we saw a lot of those just cookie cutter stringers. And I think this is what would be, if I was a Lake Jordan angler, that would be the most encouraging thing for me is a lot of those 14 and 15-pound bags we saw, or even a couple like the 16, 17s. They were just cookie cutter largemouth. They didn't have that 5+ or 6+, but it was just a good average. And that's the fish that 2 years from now, when we go back, could potentially be those 5+. So it's a healthy population of largemouth, in my opinion.
And the fish looked really good. Like you saw a lot of fish that looked like that's the first time they've ever been caught. The color was really good. You didn't see the stressed out. They were ready for that water temp to get up in that high 50s. They were kind of looking for that area, but we saw a good mix of people out in the middle of the lake. We saw some bank beaters as well. I thought the whole breakdown I thought was really good of what we saw out on the water. But I thought overall, in my non-expert opinion, because I'm not really an expert at anything. I'm one of those people that know a little bit about a lot of stuff, but
Makes you dangerous, though. Makes you dangerous.
you gotta keep you on your feet. But I thought it was a really good event. I was really proud of the way the lake showed out. And then also, one of the other things I want to talk to you before we leave Lake Jordan and move over into Pickwick was the number of young guys that we saw in the top 20. I'll go top 20. Um, Second place, Colby and Cade Krausen. They led until the very last flight. I talked to the winners before they were boat number 200. So they were the last boat in number 8 flight. But Kobe and Cade came in with 2018 early in the weigh-in. I mean, probably not 10, 12 bags in. They came in with 2018. Young, like 21 and 18. Then you've got third place, Lucas, Lindsay, and Brendan Holt, probably under that 25 mark. Then you've got Tyler Smart, Andrew Maddox. Not typical for them to be in the South Division. They're around that Weiss Lake area, but they were in 6th place. 7th, a team that you and I both picked, Noah and Cole Godwin. Young. I mean, they're probably 22, 23, and 19 now. Russ Sapp, Logan Sims, 12th place. That's the team that you said to me when off air. You're like 18 and 16. Is that what you said, Kay? 18 and 16.
Unbelievable.
12th place, Connor Miller, Caleb Miller came in with a 12th place finish in their very first Alabama Bass Trail. This is a high school team fishing 2 high school kids. This is not a parent and a son. This is 2 high school teams coming in 12th place, and I'm going to go ahead and look at their weight one more time because they had a limit. They texted me and said they had a limit at 718. They ended up with a 5-fish limit of 1715. 16 and 18 years old, dude.
Well, that's the first question I asked them. I didn't ask them how they caught their fish. I'm looking at these baby faces and I'm feeling like the old man. And I'm like, how old are y'all? First of all, like forget all the what you just did, 18 and 16. And it was so cool. So kind of the side of the stage, they pulled in there in the parking lot and John and I, folks gathered around the boat. You see all the family support, and they had their phones out when they were pulling their fish out. And we didn't realize who it was at the time until they got on stage. And I kind of pieced it all together. But they had it was so cool to see that. And then when I pieced it together, once they weighed and the family all came up for pictures, they can't do it without that support. So I think first of all, shout out to the families for allowing them to do that and having their back because I had a family just like that. And that got me, there was no high school fishing.
Mm-hmm.
There was no Alabama Bass Trail when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Had very few opportunities and chances to do it. So, but I had a family that would drive me if I needed to go 400 miles to try to get in a bass tournament. We did it.
Mm-hmm.
That's my mom and dad were that way. So for me, it's so cool to see that. And now these kids have so many opportunities. They want to fish a tournament. They can fish one dang near every weekend, whether it's BT or a high school event. There's something going on. But yeah, I can't help but smile. 18 and 16. And I'll tell this on myself. A lot of Kobe Carden and I actually talked about this. So I met Kobe Carden when I was one of those fresh faced 16 years old in a BFL at the super tournament. It was on Neely Henry, and I led it the first day as a 16-year-old. And there was like a top 20 cut or something along those lines. And I met Kobe Carden in the parking lot of the hotel in Gadsden the Saturday night. I'm out there sitting on my dad's tailgate rigging up rods, and he walks over and said, "Hey, were you the one talking?" But we were speaking about at the meeting about how crazy it is to see how far everything has gone. Because he said, "You were the only one." He's like, "You were the only kid we saw. Like there were really for a few years, I was the youngest one around all that stuff." And so now to see this youth movement just blows my mind.
It is crazy. I mean, I have watched Caleb and Connor through ASA BFA and then through the airports, and I've seen them grow. And one thing their dad and their mom both remarked was that's all they want to do. They want to fish all the time. They want to be on the water all the time. They have a place up at Smith Lake. I was a little taken back when I saw them walk in Friday night because the whole time in my mind, they're going to fish the North Division. They have a house on Smith Lake. They're there all the time. They're going to fish the North Division. But so not the case. They were there. They said the majority of the tournaments they fished in high school have been on the Coosa River and down in South Alabama. So they jumped in the South Division. I know their dads wanted them to fish, for a couple years. This was a big dream of theirs. The Krausens were the same way. You saw mom and dad there. You saw grandpa there. They brought him over with the umbrella, held up the fish, got the picture made with him. To me, that is the model that I saw when we started the Alabama Bass Trail. I didn't really think young high school anglers could come in and make an impact like that. But I certainly saw the family unit as being part of the Alabama Bass Trail, and I loved that. Love to see the young guns doing well. I mean, you still had those guys, Kobe and Chris. I mean, they were still in the top 20, right there with Robbie, Steve Winslet. They were in 9th place. Robbie, Steve Winslet in 10th place. Nick Turner, Joe Lay, they were up there. I was trying to see, they were in 13th, and then also John Pollard and Tim Watkins, local guys. They had the big fish of the tournament. They had a good finish as well. So you still saw some of those old names that you always see there, but I think the top 10, certainly top 12, dominated by new young guns in the ABT.
You know what's interesting though, and look, I know people are sitting at home when they listen to this, and they'll be like, "Oh, it's the live scope," because they love to get fired up. But it is. I can almost see them coming and know how they fished. But now, say though, there were 2 or 3 young teams that when I did put the mic in their face, said, "Swimming a jig, throwing a crankbait," and it's like that's good too, right? Like they all know they're versatile. Like that's the scary thing about these young anglers, and I see it whether it's NPFL, the Bass Opens, whatever tournament trail you're keeping up with, it really is taking over, and they're not just live scopers. Now,
Well,
are they great at it? Yes, but that's not the only thing they're good at.
well, and when I talked to Robbie and Eric, the winners, they said, "Yeah, we have it on our boat, but we only caught one fish that we feel like in our bag that we weighed in scoping." So they feel like the 20 years Eric has and the 20 years that Robbie has information on that lake, they ran spots they knew and areas that they knew and just really threw the kitchen sink at it because they said there was no pattern. We used a varying options of baits and different things. We just threw the kitchen sink at it. It was junk fishing 101. But we knew the places to go because we have 40 years experience on that lake. So really live scope didn't make their tournament. Some it probably did. But the other thing about that, and I don't live scope because I don't fish anymore. I don't ever get on the boat. But one of the things that we saw a very, very I don't even know how to say this. We saw a big old boat come through a boat check one morning, and it had, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 graphs on it. I think probably $160,000 worth of boat and graphs come through that boat check. And they weren't in the top 10. So
That's right.
I'm going to say that it's not just the graph. I
No.
bet you if you look at these top 10 and Lucas Lindsay, I used to watch him a lot on TikTok. That's how I got to know Lucas when he signed up for the Alabama Bass Trail. And the amount of time that he spent on the water when he was at Auburn. And then now, I don't know Brendan as good as I know Lucas, but certainly I had someone before I got home Saturday night text me about Kobe and Cade and what awesome anglers they were, what an awesome family they come from, and that those kids stay on the water. So I think that they are not just relying on their electronics. I think they still value the time on the water. I think that's great for our industry. If anyone watching is looking at that top 10, top 12, that's a lot of reassurance that we needed that our industry is not getting old and dying. There is a resurgence in our industry for sure.
There's a change taking place for sure too, and the way things are happening, the way these tournaments are getting won. But I also like to go back just real quick because I got the goods from some of the local legends like Mark McKeag, Tim Hurst, and Hardin and Rutland in their interviews on stage. It was interesting for me because I watched them on the water, got to see of them. They're doing what you know that they do, which is fish up shallow. They're fantastic at it. But they said on stage they did mix it in as well with some forward facing. So they kind of, it's like new school and old school, and they were still in the top 10. Like they were still competitive. But it's interesting for me that 10 years ago, right? 10 years ago, it was thought that, man, I can't compete with these guys because I don't have that vast amount of knowledge on the Coos River. Man, these guys are going to beat me every time I show up at the ramp. And they still do a lot. Don't get me wrong. But now the learning curve is just so much faster. They have access to more information than anybody ever has. You can find out something. Look at Loberg, right? Marty did his research, never been there. Wins the ABT 100 against Stone Cold Coosa River Killers, right?
Yeah.
Never seen it before practice and in crazy conditions. So It's definitely that curve. It moves a lot faster now. You can break down a body of water without ever getting on it between mapping and different things. They're dialed on their electronics, but something I do want to say is the time on the water they're spending. They are so hungry, and I remember being that. That's all you got to do, right? Like you go every spare moment of your life, you're on the boat. And now it's my dad even said this. He goes, it's like you multiplied by 5,000. I feel like now because there's so many more, and they put in their time and they're learning very quick. It's scary for me as a 40-year-old. I'm glad I'm not fishing the Alabama Bass Trail. Okay, I'm glad I'm on stage with a microphone.
I want to just point this out. When we started the Alabama Bass Trail, Connor, Caleb,
Don't say this. Don't say this.
I'm just saying, they were in the second grade in kindergarten when we started Alabama Bass Trail.
Don't say.
Just want to put that out there that they were in the second grade in kindergarten when we started the Alabama Bass Trail in 2014.
Well, that means Darian was like 2 then.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Please no, please no. But yeah, I mean, I was actually looking at that and thought, wow, that's a stat that you can't put on stat line. But yeah, they were in second grade, possibly kindergarten, first grade. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So unbelievable the talent that these guys have, right out of the gate. So that's exciting. Man, what an event. Just absolutely killed it, and with the rain held off until the way in. So you were able to get up under the stage and not get wet. And so anyway, and I know that Daniel was nice enough to share an off-screen picture of us while we were wrapping up the show on Saturday. We won't let that one get to social media. At least
Daniel.
Yeah, shout out Daniel Montgomery for always being on hand. Since Laura Ann's not with us anymore, he's the one getting the behind the scenes photos that don't need to be on scene photos, that's for sure. But let's talk about the Tennessee River, man. An exciting week, but good Lord, we need the rain to stop.
Listen, I live, 35 miles north of McFarland Park there, and you might have to put in at my house at this point. If it don't, we may launch them out of I live right off Shoal Creek here in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee. And so we might have to just put them in down here in the backyard. But I think it is supposed to stop after today. I was looking at, but while I was gone with you guys down at Jordan, Marissa was texting me. She's like, this rain will not stop. And I didn't see, like, making my way back north on Saturday night until I got to the Tennessee River Bridge on 65. I didn't really run into any. And then I found it. And it was sheets of rain. I know you experienced the same thing when you got back close to home, but it rained here off and on all day yesterday. It rained through the night, and it's doing it again today. So we do need it to stop because, as you and I both know, it can get a little tricky down on Pickwick with a large influx of water. And really, it matters what happens upstream too, right? Because Pickwick and Kentucky Lake, kind of the dumping ground, so to speak, for all that Tennessee River water. And everybody's been getting dumped on. But for me, Miss K, as an angler first, I like that current. So I like what it brings out to play. And hopefully it gets to a good level, and all 225 are going to have a big time in Florence.
I hope so. 2021, when we were there, we got 5 inches of rain on Friday. 2018, we had to postpone this event simply because the amount of rain that we received. But I mean, we're talking 18 inches of rain over the course of 2 weeks when we had to postpone. I think having Tuesday through Friday, no rain, even up north of us, I don't think we're going to have any rain up there. They did get 3 inches of rain over the weekend, expecting another 1 to 2 inches today. Some storms, but it's going to be out of Florence and out of Alabama by like 3 or 4 o'clock today. Hopefully Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of dry weather. I think it's 30% chances of rain on Saturday, hit and miss showers. So we know it's going to hit us. There's just no,
Yeah,
it's going to hit us. It may not rain anywhere else in the state of Alabama, but it's going to rain at McFarland Park. You can just bet it.
No, we don't even know. No.
It's gonna hit us. But you have a lot of familiar names in this field. Let me hear your top 5.
All right. And I'm going to leave somebody out. And you know what? You guys can take it up with me on stage because there's a lot I got to scan through before we did this. So just make sure. But here are my 5. And then I started this year. I got to give you my dark horse. But I'm going to go Michael Woolley, Joe Woolley. AOY contenders last year in the North. They're Tennessee end boys on Pickwick. They're not known for like the dam and all that, but the lake is fishing. I feel like from dam to dam fishing great. Like you can spread out, and that's been the case for many years. But they're fantastic on that lower end. I would consider those guys more summertime guys, to be honest, but some of that same type fishing plays, especially with a lot of current. So the Woolies will be in contention. Mitch Mitchell, Candler McCollum, got to have them in there, especially this time of year. Especially, really, you could just in the ABT North. No offense to everybody else, just put them in my top 5 everywhere we're going to go. I think just put them in.
They won just about everywhere. I mean,
the cool thing about them, they have all their wins have came from all over the place.
Right. Neely, Weiss, Wheeler, Pickwick.
Yes. So would not shock me, and they're tied right with Kobe and Chris. They want that title. So would not surprise me if we see that this week at all. Then I'm going to go Brian Dowdy, Kyle Llewellyn. Brian is dialed on Pickwick. They had a top 10, maybe a top 5, I believe, last year in the summer, but certainly going to know what to do when his boat number is called for sure. Both of those guys. I'm going to go Donnie Beck, Tony Harvey, because of course I am.
Why not?
Beck has taken, since I was a child, he has taken more of my money that I just started sending checks directly to his house and not fishing the tournaments. Like, here, just take it like a bully.
Child support check, Donnie Beck check.
Yes. They come out of my paycheck. They garnish my wages to Donnie and Tony forever. My dad's too, my brother, all of us. We're like, he's the sweetest person on planet Earth. Like,
absolutely.
Donnie Beck, get out of here. Quit taking our money. But this time of year, though, the dam's going to play this much current, in my opinion. Whether it's the dam or within a few miles of the dam, nobody breaks it down like him, in my opinion, and Tony. So got to have them in the mix. And then that's 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go Lance Whitaker, Jeremy Briscoe, just basically because they're just beast. But what I know about those guys, and I don't know them well. I actually just met them in person for the first time when they won last year on Pickwick in May. They are amazing current fishermen. And I've got some insider info on them from a good friend of ours, Walt Roberts. Walt, very close with those guys, but they are very good in tail races. That is their deal. And I think they found something in May last year. And talking to those guys after the weigh-in, that was an offshore deal. That was not a lead situation, but they found something in practice and they smashed them in May on it. Could that play for them? And they were sneaky about it, but they're like, oh yeah, this was something very special that they found. Could it play for this deal? Would not shock me at all, but they're just fantastic anglers anyways. So that's my 5. My dark horse is, and this is probably just a silly dark horse pick because they're fishing really great. They fish great together and they've been doing this for many years, but Walker Brown, Sloan Pennington. Walker's a local boy up here, not too far down the road from me. UNA angler. He's having a fantastic spring so far. And Sloan was all over the place when he was at UNA. He was a threat on Pickwick all the time. They have a vast amount of knowledge. They fish well together. They had a top 10 down there in May last year, I believe. And then maybe at Wheeler too. I think they might have gone back to back in those last 2 Norths did last year. So it would not shock me to see them hoist a trophy at all either.
Okay.
So there you go. Who are your picks?
I like your picks. I was interested in seeing who you were going to say. I have a little bit different. I agree on the Donnie Beck, Tony Harvey, Mitch Mitchell, Candler McCollum. Love all that. I even, I've already decided who we're going to have cameras and stuff on. You and I kind of talk about that. Some people that I just hate to leave out. I like the Lance Whitaker, Jeremy Briscoe. I thought maybe that was more just a summertime kind of a fluke. I'm gonna be honest with you, because they're Wheeler Lake, Gunnersville. They're kind of positioned over in that area. Kind of thought they would do better there. I like to walk around Sloan Pennington. You and I've talked about that off air. Lance and Cole Walker. Lance Walker, Cole Walker.
Sorry, Lance and Cole, that I left y'all out of that.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta look at those guys. They had a really good finish there in May. It's been a while since Lance has fished with us at this time of the year, but I just seem to think that they're going to do well. Nolan Spencer, Jonathan Reese, they're another team that traditionally do really well on Pickwick. Although their win with us came on Weiss, in the biggest bag we've ever had on Weiss, almost 28 pounds. I have to pick them. And then another team that I don't know a ton about, except they were there in May. The last time we were there in February, they were there. Tony Keefe and Brian Gregory.
Mhm.
Those guys seem to get it done on Pickwick. I like them. Teron Prince is fishing. He won the last event there when we had it in February. He's fished with a different partner this year. So I hesitate to make that call just because they won last time. But I think the list that you put together, the list I put together, my dark horse, and this is going to seem like not a dark horse at all, but the only reason I'm picking him as a dark horse is because Brent Crowe has never won an Alabama Bass Trail and never really done great
I
on
mean,
the Tennessee
called out.
River.
I mean, called out. I like it.
I mean, never really done great in the North Division. He's been very successful in South Division. He's had some good finishes, but he doesn't have a win. He's probably fished more Alabama Bass Trail tournaments than anyone else because he fished the North and South for the first 9 years. Brent Crowe, Jimmy Mason.
Yeah. Okay. So can I take back my picks? Hang on. And no offense to anybody, but Kay sent me the boat number draw this like 5 minutes before we did this. All right. To be fair. And those are my guys. Like, if we're talking down, like, take everything that I said about everybody else.
But way.
I don't think I realized those two were fishing together. Hey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they know every pebble,
Of Pickwick Lake.
especially at the dam, and they know what to do. So, yeah, sorry for all my other top 5. I think I picked those too. Dadgummit. I'm sorry, Jimmy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. It's the same with Lance. with
Thank
Lance.
God.
Oh, I apologize. Those are my guys too. Listen, you can go through. Look, Roger Stegall is in this tournament. That's a
Right.
living there's so many. When I went down like very quickly down the lit, there are other local hammers. It's so hard to pick. But man, Brent and Jimmy, somebody might want to put some sugar in their gas tank.
I mean,
It's a dangerous team.
well, and I said the reason that I picked him as my dark horse, and I didn't really pick a top 5. I picked some guys that I wanted to pick some guys around who you picked, and honestly, I just want to put out there, I didn't know his 5 until he just mentioned them.
Yeah.
So I was having to listen and then look over here at the other names that I had that I put trackers and things on. And that's how I get my 5. Brent and Jimmy, the only reason they've never fished an Alabama Bass Trail tournament together, but just because Brent has struggled getting in that first place, he's got a second place finish or 2 in the South Division, had a good finish at Guntersville in 2021 in the ABT 100, just kind of struggled in getting it done on the Alabama Bass Trail. I'm not necessarily calling him out. A lot of times, well, maybe I did, but a lot of times he's guiding on another lake and he's not practicing on the lake that we're actually having the tournament on. And sometimes being a guide, it's really hard to get on the water on Friday because people are, looking for you and if you've got a rat boat and all the things. So I get it. I just picked him as my dark horse only because of that reason. I do think that they have a good tournament this weekend. I think it's gonna set up to really be, because they do have so much information. When I think about Robbie Pelt, Erick Sommers saying, okay, we have 40 years combined experience on that lake, it's kind of reminiscent of this team as well. So I'm thinking that's kind of mine. Got a guess for weight on this event coming up here this weekend?
And
win and weight?
I think you're going north of 25. I do. It depends on so many things on Pickwick. And I do think, like we saw in your event last year, this is what I'm anxious to see as a Pickwick fan. It's kind of like the Lake Jordan event where you're talking about the fall, right? A couple of years ago, the weights were off. Pickwick was, I would say, a down year last year for most of the year. Now, we saw some ridiculous Jake Lawrence put on a show in the fall. They're still there. I think that fish may be changing their habits a little bit, but I know one thing. With current, it's got a few days to settle out from a clarity standpoint from all this rain. it makes those big brown fish bite. It just does, and it puts those largemouth where you can catch them. And so I'm going to go north of 25. I'm going to say 26 pounds to win this weekend. I may look like an idiot, but it won't be the first time or the last. And I'm going to say we will see a minimum of 5 bags, all smallmouth north of 20.
Okay.
5 bags north of 20. That may be somebody watching this is probably like, what are you talking about? But man, but just because warming trend, again, it's the same thing I said at Jordan. Polar vortex a couple weeks ago, huge shad kill. We saw this in there were like 3 8-pound smallmouth that got caught on Pickwick. It's been 3 or 4 years ago, but it was following a ridiculous
2021. That's when we had it. Yeah, that's when we had it. Yeah, and there was a shad kill the week before.
ridiculous shad kill, which we had a couple weeks ago. Then you have this warming trend, you have rain, you have current. And the problem at Pickwick, I think, with a lot of the weights, when we saw this last summer, they didn't generate a lot of current. They just really didn't all year last year. And so they going to generate some current this week. They're going to get some current. So I think that could really set up for us to really hammer them. I hope. I love those smallmouths. So hoping I get to hold up a 5th one for some of the teams. But listen, the lake, though, again, dam to dam, doesn't matter the end of the pit between the grass, between the shallow bars down the lake, there's so many options. They're going to catch.
Oh, I think so too. The only difference, and I can remember in 2021 till now, is we did have an immediate cold front that came through because we were at Lake Martin that time and we were having to put ice and sand on the ramp, 24 degrees. Wesley Sam sent me a video of the shad floating because we had 6 inches of snow, really cold weather, shad kill really helped the lake, and it showed out when we were there. So I think that's a little bit different what we're going to see here. We're just going to have a tremendous amount of rain over the next 24 hours. I do think it'll settle down. I think things will get in position the way they need to. Last summer, you were at the dam. There was almost nobody there.
You could have poured water out of a 5-gallon bucket and made more current than when we were there.
Right. And to me, at this venue, where we're blasting off from there at McFarland Park, the biggest decision in the morning is left or right. I really think, are you going left or are you going right? I know if Nick Reeves was in this son of a gun, I know exactly where he would be going. He would be going left and get up there in that current. And I remember times we've had 20, 30 boats within 100 yards of each other, just going up and floating back, or more.
Yeah, you can hopscotch them around. Brandon Perkins won our MPFL there at first week of March last year, and he said it was the first time in his life that he ever hung a left.
Wow.
ever. But we saw a 26-pound bag of smallmouth on the final day of that event for one of our anglers. So like the possibility of that winning weight being all brown ones. I mean, I've seen some 28s, some 29s over the years, and they're always in February when you see them. So
yeah. I think it's a great time to start there. I'm looking forward to it. The city of Florence always rolls out the red carpet for us. Doing a little bit different, going to the Hibbett Intermediate School for our meeting. That's different for us. They got a lot of things going on in Florence at the Coliseum and at the Convention Center. All kinds of things going. But I'm looking forward to getting there, and I'm looking forward. I say this all the time. You can't end a season until you start a season. So I'm looking forward to getting to Pickwick and fun times. Going to be coming off of the Love Day. You got something special planned for Miss Marissa for Love Day?
Listen, she just gets me every day. So that's my gift to her, right? She
might want a refund or an exchange, dude.
Buddy, trust me, she wants a refund. She wants a refund. Like fish and beef jerky all the time. She wants a refund.
I get it 100%. Anything else? Anything surprised you from the Alabama Bass Trail thus far? You've been at a 100, you've been at the South. I mean, anything surprised you thus far?
Yeah, how long it takes to say 225 names at takeoff really sucks. I'm just going to say that. I love you guys, but that's a lot. No, it's not a surprise, but what has made me smile the most is how welcoming everybody has been, right? We're 2 tournaments in. I've done a 100, a South event. I don't know a lot of the South anglers. They were so gracious. They were so nice to me at the meeting, welcoming me. And, I had giant shoes to fill with Robbie Floyd, and I knew that coming in, but it's like I've been there 10 years, the way everybody treats me. And so that is I guess if that's a surprise, that and just also, and I knew this from an angler's point of view, just how hard you guys work. And I'm not trying to kiss up to the boss right now, Valentine's week at all, but you guys, you absolutely, I don't think anybody until you're behind the scenes, you could see how hard you, John, Daniel, the camera crew, like all the moving parts it takes to put the show on and then to tear it back down and take it to the next town. It is a traveling circus for sure. But it's just a tight knit group. But again, even beyond the anglers, the team welcoming me in as well. And it's been a surprise. I guess the biggest surprise is I've actually enjoyed working with Darian. I didn't think that was going to be good. Shout out to Jason Duran for putting up with both of us because Jason's the veteran and a guru at what he does, by the way.
Yeah, he is.
Jason's the man.
He is. I think the chemistry's been great thus far. I think everybody's worked really, really well together. John and Daniel know their role. They do it, very, very well. Our team rallies around them. You know, not a surprise to me because I've been with them for a long time. The amount of fun that they have doing this job that sometimes goes very thankless, but I mean, the fun that they have doing this job and how smoothly using the 2 boat ramps. Because when you say that, I mean, guys start spinning out like, what do you mean we got to go to 2 boat ramps? But 100% the ABT South anglers understood the assignment and did it. We're on the water early. We were able to blast off early, and it was just a great first event. And I'm looking forward to Pickwick too, man.
But
Really.
just like being boots on the ground, like you're saying, just that example right there, the 2 ramps. Because I've been that angler where you're like, oh man, I got to do this, I got to go. Well, it's crazy. And I pulled up, and I was there 5:15, 5:30 ish, and basically everybody's already in the water, ready to go fishing. There was no line, it wasn't lined up to the highway at the state ramp. People were coming by water. It was so smooth, and you're not kidding in that there wasn't an issue. There was no drama pre-tournament. There was no, and it was the same way at Logan in the freezing cold.
Mhm.
There was no drama. Yeah, we had some, little bit of cold conditions, obviously, some boats stuck to the trailer, a couple, but like overall, there was no, people weren't running around like chickens with their head cut off. It was fantastic, like just so smooth how you guys run things. And the fun factor, we laugh a lot. Like John and I might not be able to say some of the things we say sometimes, but we have a good time. I want to thank you for like letting me bring my own spin to it, but I like picking at you. You know that. Like,
Oh yeah.
the
It's
crowd, I'm like, everybody, look at Miss Kate. I
Yeah.
love stuff, but Jason's a great sport about it. Darian, I get John involved in the mix, but I'm grateful that the anglers also like, because I like to gig them a little bit too. You come in there with one fish. Hey, I've been there a lot.
Yeah.
Don't want to talk about that. Let's talk about something else. So
Yeah.
it's been fun, and it worked. Like you said, we're only just beginning this thing,
Yeah.
this year, and I can't wait. It's an honor to get to kick off the North, what I consider like my second home, Florence, Alabama. I lived there for several years, and going to see a lot of familiar faces this weekend. So can't wait.
Looking forward to it. I want to ask you one other question, then I'll let you go. How cool was it to walk up to Lake Jordan and there's Stan Tripp Weldon?
I knew you were going to say that, and I got chills.
I know. I do it every time, and he shows up every time. And for me, that is such a validation of what we're doing. And I just gotta say, I mean, I know when you walked up, your smile, went
Oh
red.
man, I think he's a hero of mine, and I've had the pleasure of knowing him for many years now. He's always, and I know Hank really well, and they're great people, first of all. But man, the stories he's got, like I could just sit around and listen to Trip all day long. But for me, I mentioned this on my podcast that for me, he got out of the rain right next to Jason, stage left. So he was right in my view. And I'm like, okay, here we go. Like it got me a little bit like, all right, but no big deal. There's Trip Weldon. I got to be on my best behavior up here. But he's always so kind. And you're right. It's the same I say about Bill Taylor from FLW. They love fishing so much. And you can't do this if you don't. It can't work in this industry, but they're such tournament anglers at heart that besides the work part of it, and it was their day job for so long, they just love it. They love tournament standings. They love stories about tournaments. They love the anglers. And he sat there and watched them come across. And I got to see him smile so many times when those big spot, because he loves those big spotted bass.
Yes.
He was sitting right there. But yeah, oh my goodness. When I saw him, I'm like, are you kidding me? Fantastic. Fantastic. And so shout out to Trip for supporting us.
Well, I'll tell you my funniest trip story was when I think it was in 2018. Ben's partner was either they were having a baby or something, and Trip was his alternate. And Ben texted me like on Thursday and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know Dad's filling in for my partner, so he'll be fishing with me on Friday or on Saturday." And my heart went to my pants. Like, I'm like, you mean Trip Weldon, the Bassmaster Elite
Hey,
Series
Trip.
tournament director, the legend, is going to be fishing out of Bass Trail when we have to use 2 ramps. It's 225 boats and all the things. And like the whole time I was just, on pins and needles. God, I wanted us to do so well. And Clay Baldus was tournament director then. And I was like, no pressure, but this is what we got coming up. And so, but after the tournament, Trip called me and just, gave us nothing but praise and was just very impressed with our organization. He's watched us from day one, but just very impressed. And when he walks up, I no longer feel oh my gosh, the legend of bass fishing is here. I feel like a friend has just walked
Yeah.
up, and it's just, and he's made that way, and really appreciates what we're doing, and certainly just was tickled to death that he came out, spent some time with us. I wish Miss Mary would have been able to come, but I understand the weather and everything is not the greatest, but was glad to see him. Love to see that smile on your face when you saw him. And he came like an hour early. So it was good to be able to spend some time with him. So shout out to Trip. Yeah.
Yeah. I had been at lunch with Darian, so it was good to see somebody that I actually wanted to talk to.
You're spending a whole lot of time with Erick. Y'all are going to get about a 3-week break after this one. So maybe y'all can
Bring
get
it.
a break.
Bring it on. I had to bring him home. He had a little technical difficulty with the vehicle. No big deal. We won't go into the dirty details of that, but I had to take him home and had to buy supper because I think because the vehicle broke down, he acted like he didn't have his wallet or something. He had like Tyrannosaurus Rex arms where he couldn't get out his wallet. So I had to buy him supper. It was a whole thing. I had to spend
all day just babysitting Darian.
I love giving him a hard time. Obviously, he's a fine young man and one of my best. He's like my little brother in this world, and we have a good time. But I think people might think that I really don't like him, so I have to say, look, I really do like him.
Yeah, he's a great kid, and what an innovator, and has grown his business unbelievably, and so really proud of him, knowing him from back when he was in high school and all the things, and allowed him to take my daughter to prom.
I don't
Senior
think
year.
I don't think
Senior year of prom, he took my daughter to prom, as friends. But yeah, great. I love Hannah, and that little baby is just the cutest thing. I love keeping up with him on social media. So glad to have you two, along with Jason, out on the water, and the whole live team that just kicks butt every weekend. So thank you for spending some time with me, and I'll see you on Saturday morning. Well, I'll see you on Thursday night at the live meeting, but I'll see you on Saturday morning in person.
Friday night. I'm gonna be at the meeting Friday night.
Oh, that's right. I forget.
I'm gonna be there.
Well, Robbie never came to the meetings, so you're one up on Robbie.
Is that an option? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it is, but you've got a lot of people there you're going to want to talk to and get some inside information.
I'm not gonna be like Darian and show up at 10 o'clock the night before. Kay, I am a company man. I won't be there. See you.
I appreciate you. You have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. There you have it, guys. Mr. Luke Duncan, the voice of the Alabama Bass Trail, giving you his opinion on Lake Jordan and also Pickwick Lake. We'll be back in just a moment on the Alabama Bass Trail podcast presented by Phoenix Boats.
I grew up in the South. I love it here. Like I love the homemade taste of Jack's. Right now, get our Bacon Ranch Big Jack. All beef patties, crispy bacon, and yeah, homemade ranch. Southern style. Ain't no other way. We're good, hard-working people serving great food.
Big game today.
Big game today.
Good luck.
Come on in for our Bacon Ranch Big Jack or get our classic with crinkle cut fries starting at $5.49. Stop by and say hey.
Hey.
I'm Donna Davis, and I am all about the South.
Welcome back to the final segment of the Alabama Bass Trail podcast presented by Phoenix Boats. And let's wrap it up because I know that you guys have jobs to do and pre-fishing to do, but I do want to welcome you back for the final segment, 4 days before we get to Pickwick Lake. Looking forward to that. As you heard from Luke Duncan, we're expecting a all-out hog fest, just a slugfest, and we can't wait. Tournaments there have been phenomenal, whether we've been June ledge fishing, whether we've been early season getting kicked off, and Pickwick never disappoints. Looking forward to getting there and getting down to Florence, Alabama. 3 days until UAB baseball kicks off at home, taking on Kennesaw State. Gonna miss the season opener. I can't remember a time that I've missed the opening weekend of baseball season, but I will miss that. It'll be at Pickwick on Friday, Saturday. Hopefully the family will get down there on Sunday to watch Jake and his team take on Kennesaw State. It's always great to get things kicked off on the Alabama Bass Trail. Looking forward to the entire season in a jam-packed 2024 season for the Alabama Bass Trail with all the shows that we have, adding the ABT 100s and all the things that we have to do. But do look forward to being in Florence. And I'm not going to do a full segment on things to do, see, and eat in the state of Alabama. But, Florence is known for good food and good music. And I love getting over there. One of my favorite places is Rosie's Mexican Cantina. Love to go there. I love their cheese dip. Great margaritas. If you're there, get the spicy margarita. It's my favorite. Also, Big Bad Breakfast, one of my all-time favorites. If you don't like eating breakfast and you don't like big portions, don't go there, because it is a big-time breakfast if you go to Big Bad Breakfast. And also, you can't mention Florence without mentioning Riccatoni's downtown. I believe it's on Court Street. Lot of good food there. If you're an Italian food lover, it's a great place. 2 fun places to check out after the tournament, after 5 o'clock, would be the Boiler Room. It is below Big Bad Breakfast. Really cool place. Got 2 lanes of bowling there. Been there a couple times. Fun place. And then Flow Bama for live music and entertainment during the week and on the weekends. It's a fun place. So you can also eat there. Mugshots is on the corner. I mean, there's 306 Barbecue. There's tons of places just in downtown. But of course, you've got Cajuns, I think, across the way, across the river. Just a lot of cool places to go and eat while you're in Florence. So please take advantage of all of those. But that does it for this week's podcast. Hopefully you will subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcasting app. Also, if you want to send me any topics that you would like to cover, please do that at KAY@alabamabasstrail.org. Looking forward to hearing those. Before I end the show, I do want to remind you to please pray for Big Daddy Lawler. I got a couple text messages while I was doing the podcast. It does not seem like things are going well for our friend Big Daddy Lawler. Please keep him and his family and his friends and the whole town of Camden and Wilcox County in your prayers. He is an icon in that area, and he is a national treasure to me. So please say a prayer for our friend. But until then, God bless. Good fishing. Go Blazers. And as my friend Big Daddy always says, get outdoors. Y'all have a good day.
Thanks for listening to the Alabama Bass Trail Podcast. To learn more about the Alabama Bass Trail, make sure and visit alabamabasstrail.org.